for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now. Got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now. Got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur. Oh!
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Stanley pour les Canadiens, le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup.
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. LaBita.tv. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Good afternoon or good evening or good night, everyone. My name is Matt Ohayon. I am the Hebrew Hammer. I am back on the Sick Podcast. Thank you for joining us. I excuse my, for our viewers, excuse my hair. It's a little bit of a mess. That's why I'm wearing a hat. Still can't escape it. Where was I? I was in Seattle, or the Seattle metropolitan area, Tacoma to be exact, for a 3-day festival. Then I went to Florida to get some sunshine and recoup from said 3-day festival. Got back here in time for my best friend in the entire world, Jonathan Weinstein, for his engagement party to Becky Whale. Congratulations, you two. And then watch the Super Bowl here. Fast forward, it's Friday. Here we are. Okay, enough about me. Let's take care of some business. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, who have been named by the Financial Times as one of the America's fastest growing companies in 2023 and have been recognized by the Globe and Mail as a top growing Canadian company for 2 years in a row. They work with some of the biggest Fortune 500 companies, providing end-to-end logistics services. Join a winning team and check out Energy's career page for available opportunities if that floats your boat. With over 30,000 square feet of new gaming, dining, and entertainment space, it's time to reacquaint yourself with Playground. World-class sushi, AAA steaks, live shows, and a brand new poker floor, and just so much more. Located just over the Mercier Bridge, only minutes away from downtown Montreal, Playground. Experience the strip without the trip. We're also brought to you by La Bita TB Beer, brewed in Quebec, a winner of international awards. La Bita TB offers quality microbrewery beers made with premium ingredients for everyone's taste. La Bita TB, embrace your true nature. And finally, of course, Accent Assurance. You know all insurance isn't created equal, and you know where to find the right solution for you. Accent Insurance. Accent doesn't sell insurance, they shop insurance for you to find the right product, right on the money, whatever your insurance needs, home, auto, business, whatever it may be. Call the Accent team today at 514-363-3636 and get the right solution at the right price. Visit their website at accentassurance.com. Okay, I missed a lot in the 2 weeks or the 2 episodes I wasn't here. I missed the Sean Monahan trade. I missed the NHL not knowing, beside itself, not knowing what to do. And all the analysts all over national media not knowing what to do. How dare Ottawa Senators player Ridley Gregg take a slap shot into a net? How dare he? And then Morgan Rielly standing up for his teammates after a player scored on his net. So craziness that I missed. But more importantly, what I really have missed was just this absolute tear that Juraj Slafkovsky is on. So we're going to talk about all these things and more with, as usual, haven't said this in a while, my usual Friday guest. He writes for the Montreal Gazette. You know him from Hockey Inside Out. He's Stu Cowan of the Montreal Gazette. How are you, Stu?
I'm doing well, Matt. I'll apologize for my hair being a bit messy tonight also.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one you always got in your back pocket and you'll always get a laugh. You'll always get a laugh out of that one.
And Seattle. I was there once with the Canadians last season. I only got to spend one day there, but the Habs didn't have a morning skate. They played the night before in Vancouver, and what a cool city. Like, I fell in love. I spent 24 hours there, and I fell in love with the city. It's just such a cool place.
I love there's a part of downtown. So I found it a little weird because the downtown, like you see a skyline of Seattle and you picture the Space Needle being right in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Not there.
No.
Not there.
Right close to the arena, though. The coolest hockey rink I've ever been in my life. Climate Pledge.
So,
it's spectacular.
So, but I loved on like just their main downtown core. First of all, I just think it's so cool whenever you see a massive football stadium in the smack in the middle of a downtown. I think that's
baseball
really cool.
Stadium not far away.
Right next door to it. Yeah. And I love the amount of breweries they have just downtown. You just pop in and it's just, I mean, it's my first time in that climate because I've never really been to the West Coast during the winter. And just, man, like I'm walking down the street. It's the beginning of February. It's +9 or 10. And I got my sunglasses on. I'm feeling good. And it's a cool climate.
It's just a cool vibe to it, eh? Like it's not all like McDonald's and Pizza Hut and Starbucks.
Yes.
It's cool little places and cool to walk around. And actually, it's a good Netflix series. I watched Loudermilk, which is hilarious, and it's set in Seattle and brings back memories of that. But it's a really cool place. Guys playing for the Kraken must really enjoy living there.
Yeah, and the best thing, in my opinion, about it is like how close for a big metropolitan city like that, how close you are to just like wilderness, because you're like 20 minutes away from some really, really cool hikes, some waterfalls and stuff like that I went to visit with some friends, before the festival restarted each day. So really cool. And then, hey, what can we say about Florida? It's Florida. So the Montreal Canadiens.
I remember leaving Florida one year with the Canadiens. I walked the beach in Fort Lauderdale the morning of my flight. It was 27 degrees. I flew home, and when I got off the plane in Montreal, it was -22.
That's a classic. It's a classic. I didn't have that so bad. Like I got on the plane. It was about 25 degrees. I landed here. I mean, hey, you can't really complain if you're in positive degrees in February. So it was about 5 degrees. It was fine. I've landed in way worse temperatures. So the vacation was all good. But guys who were not on vacation, other than the All-Star break, of course, were the Montreal Canadiens. That means also you, because as they go, you go. What you can start better than I can. Just Juraj Slafkovsky. What a turnaround this guy has had. Compared to this time last year.
It's been remarkable. Even earlier this season, I wrote a column.
Yeah, that's right. In November,
saying that they got to send him to Laval. Like, this kid's just not ready to play in the NHL. He was losing puck battles in his own zone. He was making blind passes. He seemed to have no confidence. He wouldn't shoot the puck. And wow, watching him now to then, the improvement is just remarkable. And kudos to Marty St. Louis and Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton. I thought he needed to go to the AHL. They thought differently, looking like they were right. It's taken some time, and Marty St. Louis has been so patient with him. And St. Louis said numerous times that Slafkovsky's a sponge. Like, he wants to learn. And, when I was writing that I thought he should go down, and people were saying, oh, you hate him. Slafkovsky, you cannot not like Juraj Slafkovsky. He's such a likable kid and a fun kid to be around, but he was really struggling as a 19-year-old, not shockingly, in the NHL. But the way he has improved over the last month or so, especially the last couple of weeks, wow. Like, athletes always talk about how important confidence is, and he's got a lot of confidence now. He's not that he never had it, but he was maybe doubting himself a bit in the NHL. Can I really play here? Am I ready? He's starting to look like a guy who knows now that he can not only play in the NHL, but he can be pretty dominant. I mean, that line, that number one line now has just been fantastic. And Nick Suzuki's point production is going up because Caulfield and Slafkovsky are playing better. So that line, Suzuki's the oldest guy at 24 years old. What a bright future ahead for this as a number one line for the Canadiens for many years to come. And there will be some bumps along the road even before the end of this season for Slafkovsky. He had struggled a little bit there when St. Louis took him off the number one line for a couple of games before the Monahan trade. That was probably a good thing. He maybe realized, this, we're not going to hand this to you. We're not going to just put you on the number one line and leave you there forever if not doing what we want you to do. And if they were trying to send a message, he got it. and he's shooting the puck more now. There was one opportunity he had last night where he didn't shoot, and I was watching on TV. It's like, man, I shoot the puck. And then after that, he shot, like not too long after, and he scored. So that shot is so good, and he's got to use it more. But for a kid in the NHL, I think it's just natural to want to look to pass to the veteran guys, especially if you're playing with Cole Caulfield. But the more he starts shooting the puck, the more it's going to help not only him score goals, it's going to help Cole Caulfield also, because the defense won't be focusing so much on him and realize that Suzuki has two wingers that have really good shots and can put the puck in the net.
The thing I love the most about, obviously there's a lot to love about the production right now, and what we're going to talk about confidence, we're going to get back to that point soon, but what I love the most about it is just like you look at him on this point streak, and like as you tweeted last night, I wish he would shoot. That's why I'm always saying shoot the puck more, because he's got a wicked shot.
Well, yeah, and he gets it away so quick. That goal he scored last night, he pulled it back and he just fired it. Goalie wasn't ready.
So with exception of one game during his point streak where he had no shots, he's at least had two in each game. And that's a good building block, because that's something that I noticed. Like everyone was tweeting, you could look at what he's on pace for the season. I think it's 44 points now. You could look, 18 goals, which, hey, for a 19-year-old kid, I'll take 18 goals from them. I'm pretty sure before the season, we both said, 20 goals, success.
Yeah.
Success season
for
Juraj Slafkovsky. So it's all pointing well. It's just I want to see that shot total, like that's he's on pace for 120-ish shots. You got to get that up to 200.
That tweet I put last night when I said shoot the puck, Juraj, and somebody responded, well, at least he's not selfish like Cole Caulfield and always shoots. I'm like, he has to be selfish. He's selfish. That's how goal scorers are selfish. They shoot the puck. And now, as I said, Suzuki, who's a great playmaker, has two guys who can shoot the puck. And, he's a good player maker also, Slafkovsky, and you don't want to take that away. And Cole Caulfield's a great playmaker also. I mean, he's been underestimated. He's a ton of assists this season. But you're right, shoot the puck. Be a little selfish. Shoot the puck. Anytime he gets the puck in a dangerous scoring area, he's got to shoot. Even if it's a 3-on-1 or a 2-on-1, if he has the puck and he's in a shooting area, shoot. Now, if the goalie saves it, a good chance you're going to get a rebound also. I mean, he had last night, I think it was a 3-on-2. He tried to pass. They didn't even get a shot off anybody. Shoot the puck, you're right. If there's any hesitation in your mind what I should do, shoot it.
And it's amazing. So let's talk about confidence. Because, lots of stories coming down. And, a lot of people in the media, like there's this account on Twitter. It's Bad Habs Takes, starting to retweet a lot of these these now seemingly bad takes on Juraj Slafkovsky from the moment he was drafted till now. And I mean, credit to a lot of media members. And you said it, and that's what sparked it in my head. It's like, you said it. You've been clamoring. You've like hammered him a couple times. Arpin Basu just wrote a great piece in The Athletic. He even included the article where he wrote, he said, including me, I slammed him. Read the comments. They slammed him too. And it's just, that's got to take an effect on someone. But by the same account, like, what a job by Kent Hughes, Martin St. Louis, and Jeff Gorton, keeping his confidence levels high, because like believing in a kid like that while all this noise is happening around you, that's got to mean a lot. That's really got to mean something.
And as Arpin said, I mean, a lot of people don't think understand the jobs that myself and Arpin and Eric Engels and the other columnists, like, we're not there to be fans. Like, I'm paid to give my opinion. If a guy's playing well, I write he's playing well. If a guy's playing poorly, I write he's playing poorly. And there's times in a season, just about every player, those things happen. As I was saying, people think, oh, you don't like Slafkovsky. I like Slafkovsky. There's maybe a handful of players I can think of in the years I've been covering the Canadiens that I didn't like for one reason or another. But I never let it impact the way I wrote about what they did on the ice. So for Slafkovsky, the confidence thing, one of the reasons the Canadiens drafted him is because he's so confident. And they figured he could handle the pressure in this market. And man, oh man, has he handled this. It's incredible for a 19-year-old how he has handled everything thrown at him. Coming to a new country, new language, smaller arena, the pressure in Montreal. Like, if you're a number one pick in Carolina or Arizona, it's not like being the number one pick in Montreal, right? Right from day one at the Bell Center when they selected him. But he's never lost his smile. He's having fun coming to the rink. He's happy. He's a nice kid. It's impossible not to like Juraj Slafkovsky, just a really likable guy. But those are reasons why the Canadiens drafted him, not just because of his physical abilities, his size, his hockey playing ability. They thought that he could handle everything that comes with playing with the Montreal Canadiens. And a lot of players can't. I mean, Jonathan Drouin, the latest example, right? The pressure got to him. He had anxiety. He couldn't sleep. And it's a lot. You can't go anywhere in this city. Juraj Slafkovsky can't go anywhere without being recognized, right? Cole Caulfield. That's a lot, especially on a 19, 20, 21-year-old, 22-year-old kid. That's a lot to handle. It's a lot for a 35-year-old person to handle. I'm 60. That would be a lot for me to handle. Everywhere you go out for your wife with dinner and you're always being stopped. It's a lot. So he's handled it really, really well. And it just shows how Kent Hughes and Gordon and the scouting staff did their homework before, and they realized that Juraj Slafkovsky was a player who could handle everything in Montreal. And now, a year from now, if he's struggling and not scoring again, I'll be writing that he's playing poorly, and we'll be sitting here talking about how poorly he's playing. But as of now, it looks like, Marty St. Louis has said several times this season, progression sort of goes, and he had a great line. He said, it's like a ways, right? Like they have a ways on Slafkovsky, and he might get detoured, and he might come back, and he might get delayed, but eventually he's going to get there. And right now, there's very little reason to believe he's not going to get there. Like the question is, where is there? Is it a 30-goal scorer? Is it a 35-goal scorer? Is it more of a playmaker? But right now, he's on a path that, I see and fans see and everybody sees why the Canadian scouting staff and management team decided this was the right guy to take with the number 1 overall pick.
And, just as a side note, it's funny you mentioned, I don't know if this was intentional because it's the only 2 teams playing tonight, but you said it's different being a player on a first overall pick on Carolina or on Arizona. The NBA is on has entered its All-Star break. The NHL, carte blanche, the floor is yours. You're the only sports league going on. What do they do for a Friday night marquee game? Carolina, Arizona, strapped into, that's the only game tonight, the only game. And it's on NHL Network, which very few people subscribe to.
Crazy. It's
good work.
It really is. It really it's a great point.
So it's just funny because you mentioned those 2 teams. So I was like, I don't know if you said that because
it would be a good night to have Boston play Montreal or another Original Six rivalry or Connor Bedard playing or something, right?
You would think. Yeah. You would think. But anyways, it's funny that you say like it would be a lot for anyone to. Of course, it'd be a lot for anyone to handle, and it's funny because my girlfriend asked me a question the other night, and it kind of and what you said got me thinking. It's like she asked me if you could be for 5 years any celebrity you want, who would it be? And like I mentioned like I was like, who do you think I would say? She goes, Joe Burrow, easy. I go, no. He's too famous. I don't want to, it's too much. I can't deal with that, not being able to like go to the bathroom at a restaurant without being harassed, like I can't deal with that.
The thing with that, Joe Burrow in Cincinnati, and a lot of places in the States, but he can probably go to Mexico or somewhere and nobody knows.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And that's then you get to Taylor Swift territory where they can't go anywhere in the world.
No.
Without being recognized. Like that's like, that's anywhere these people go, movie stars and big music stars, Prince before he died, Bruce Springsteen, like people, they can't go anywhere in the world without being recognized. Like, that's gotta be like, there's no escape, right? Unless you put on a disguise or something. And then when you go out.
Well, so the thing is, and you got to think because like Habs fans forget that they're everywhere, but really North America, they are everywhere. Like you can find a big contingent in any city. So like
Kent Hughes told me about that, like being in an airport in Nashville or somewhere and some Canadian, hey, you're Kent Hughes, or being on vacation. Yeah.
So it's got to feel like sometimes that that's your world because there's no escape you can't go to Europe in the middle of the regular season. So for call it 180 days of the year, probably more, you are going to get recognized anywhere you go. Just you're running on that assumption. It's a lot for anyone to handle, let alone a 19. Like I'm 27. There's no chance I can handle that. Like I would hate that.
Yeah. Yeah, and your wife or girlfriend or whoever you're with, your partner, when you go out for dinner, you can't there's always gonna be people on you, right? You can't just go out like a quiet dinner in a corner somewhere and not be bothered. And it's and I remember the other part of that, I remember being at a golf tournament. I might have told you the story before. There was a Quebec Hall of Fame tournament. I was sitting with Yvon Cornway at the table. And during the dinner, he must have got stopped 10 times by people asking for an autograph or a picture. And he was so gracious and polite with all of them and really nice. And I asked him, near the end of the dinner, I said, does that ever bother you? He says, what's going to bother me? When nobody wants my autograph anymore. That's another way of looking at it. And there's pressure in that comes with it. But to hear that from Yvon Cornway, a guy who, for how many 50 years of his life or whatever, he hasn't been able to go anywhere in Montreal without being recognized, and he's handled it graciously and well. And I was speaking with Nick Suzuki. I wrote a column on him this week talking about that, how he handles the off-ice stuff, the on-ice stuff, and everything that comes with being a captain. He's saying during the season he tries to limit like the charity stuff and whatnot he does, so he can focus on the game. But he said in the summer he enjoys it. Like, he's stayed here the last 2 summers. He's recognized everywhere he's been. I've seen Suzuki out at talking at schools or out in public and that, and he handles fans with a lot of class. He really does it well. He seems to be really good at handling that spotlight. And the young guys in this team, they all seem to be able. It's like they want to be here. Jack Eyes like the spotlight, and Caden Gooley's a little bit less recognizable and a little more quiet, but they don't seem to mind it as much, which is really good for this team moving forward, because in the past, there was a lot of guys who didn't want to play here for that reason, or that was one of the reasons anyway.
So let's go back to, you mentioned him. We're going to talk about him for sure. We're going to talk about the trio because you mentioned them as a trio of Suzuki, Caulfield, and Slafkovsky. And it's just to go back to that, and to Slafkovsky's credit, he's such an important player for that trio, because him having that, now finding his offensive touch, it just opens so many doors for that line. Wow. The NHL for the most part works on duos, and, it's very rare that you get a trio. I can name 2 off the top of my head, and one of them isn't even a trio anymore because Patrice Bergeron isn't in Boston anymore. So, it works in duos, and just to have a trio where it just opens so many doors. And I feel like that's why there's so much production coming out of that line right now, because teams just don't know who to look at and who to, maybe gravitate towards when they're covering. Because, Suzuki, he's got the shot in his back pocket, on top of being a scorer, on top of being a passer. And then you have Juraj Slafkovsky. He has a wicked shot, but he could also dish the puck. Cole Caulfield, his numbers are up in assists. There's just so much that they could do.
Yeah. When was the last time the Canadians had a real number one line? And as I said, the oldest guy in this line is 24 years old. I mean, I could tell you
the last time.
Well, I'll tell you. Okay, go ahead.
They were the best line in hockey until the playoffs hit. It was David Desharnais. Here, wait. Let's get my thumb. Let's get my fingers in this. Max Pacioretty and Thomas Vanek. That was the best line in hockey for a good 3-month stretch. Playoffs hit, stopped. It's like they hit a concrete wall.
They had those 2 guys with Radulov at one point too, if I'm not mistaken, which was not a bad line. But David Desharnais, no knock on David Desharnais, what a story he was just getting the NHL, but he wasn't a number 1 NHL centerman. No. And it says a lot about Max Pacioretty that he scored 30 goals every year with David Desharnais as a centerman. But I think you need to go back to Lafleur, Shutt, and Lemaire or Mahavlich. Seriously, I'm not saying these 3 guys are going to be
I hear
gamers, but that's the last time I remember the Canadians having this is your number 1 line, and it's going to be your number
one
line
that stuck, one that was consistently there.
You look now. I mean, Nick and Suzuki and Caulfield are both under contract for 7-8 years, and Slafkovsky, I'm sure they'll sign him long term. That this could be your number 1 line for the next 7 years, 6-7 years, and as I said, in 7 years, Nick Suzuki's going to be 31, and Caulfield's going to be 29, and Slafkovsky's going to be 26. So it could become one of the dominant lines in the NHL. And if you're in a rebuilding phase, building your number 1 line is a pretty good stepping stone towards getting there, right? And now they have all these, draft picks coming up. They have some young prospects coming up. I wrote a column this week saying, a rebuild, I think you got to look at a 5-year plan. It used to be talking about Mark Berger. This is year 2. This is year 2. So you got a number 1 line that looks in place already. You got a power play that's doing a lot better right now. Goaltending, Sam Monto had a rough game last night, but it looks like, he could be your number 1 guy going forward with whoever's going to be the backup. They got a lot of young defensemen. So there's reason for hope in year 2 of a rebuild. And as I said, it took a long time for the Canes to get as bad as they were. And it's going to take time to fix those problems. They're still saddled with some contracts. Brendan Gallagher's, don't think you're going to be able to move that deal. Excuse me. Joel Armia, I don't think you're going to be able to move him. Josh Anderson, has been a shadow of himself this season. That's another one. But there's also all teams have excuse me. All teams have contracts like that, but the Canadians there's a lot of reason for hope in year 2 of a rebuild.
And I just jotted it down. I think this was the line. This is when the Canadians went, they got first place in the Eastern Conference, I believe. In the Eastern Conference. They were the number 1 seed. They played against Boston, beat them in 7. Forget who they lost to that year. This is the 2008 year. I forget who they lost to in the second round. Anyways, that team had a first line. They had a legit first line. Center, Thomas Plekanec.
Yeah.
Left wing was Andrei Kostitsyn, or right wing. And then the other winger, Alex Kovalev. That was the last time the Canadians had a point per game player.
They lost to Philly in the second round.
There you go.
Yeah.
So that was also again, that was just 1-2 seasons. This isn't
this is, I said, this is
a law term.
These guys are going to be together for a long time.
Yeah. So that's just got to be really exciting.
And the other important thing is the 3 of them really like each other off the ice. Like Suzuki and Caulfield, they've been buddies since the day Caulfield was drafted. And Slafkovsky was talking the other day about, him and Caulfield joke around. They have similar type personalities. They're both funny. They both have good sense of humor. They both laugh a lot. Nick's more the serious guy, in the middle. And but you see them on the bench talking together. And Slafkovsky spoke recently about how it makes it so much easier playing with guys when you're actually friends away from the ice too. You're hanging out in the hotel room together on the road. You're talking not just hockey, but other things, but also hockey. And so it's a real good combination with these 3 guys as a number 1 line moving forward.
And it's also just as another thing, this is on a I've had experience working with my actual friends too, and it's you can communicate very effectively with so clear with someone that you are actually friends with. Cause you could see, it's kind of like how, in the Super Bowl, that famous picture of Travis Kelce screaming at Andy Reid. I'm not going to say Travis Kelce and Andy Reid are friends, but they've been doing this together for a long time. That's how they communicate.
It's easier to tell your friend on the bench, come on, buddy, pick it up, let's go, you're slacking off, than it is some guy that you're not friends with or you're intimidated by or an older veteran or something like that. So there are 3 guys that can, get on each other if they're not performing up to where they're supposed to be.
Exactly. Let's move on to something that was it's been a pretty, we've been I feel like we're on top of a lot of stuff, you and I, Stu. I gotta throw us some flowers for us in that, you said, I asked you the question at Christmas time, if Nick Suzuki had a New Year's resolution, what would it be? And you said finish with 80 point per game. Yeah. He's getting there. He's not quite on pace, but he's getting there.
But the way he's going, the last few games, he's on pace ahead of that. And
exactly.
At Kent Hughes' midseason news conference, when I asked him about the importance of having a point per game player, and he said at the time, if Nick Suzuki was playing in Boston now, he'd be a point per game player. The line mates he'd have there. If he was playing in Tampa with Kucherov, he'd be a point per game player. And as I mentioned earlier in the show, now that Slafkovsky and Caulfield are picking it up, he's a point per game player. And the way things are going now, I'd be surprised if he doesn't finish the season with at least 82 points, if not more. He can't do it alone as a centerman. But when both of his wingers are going, and they're both going pretty good right now, he's going to pick up the points. And as you said, the other thing with Suzuki, he's known as the playmaker, but he can shoot the puck too. And so you got 3 guys in that line. They're all good playmakers, all have good shots. Caulfield has an elite level shot, and Slafkovsky, I think, is developing what could become an elite level shot. He's been working on it a lot before practices recently with Adam Nicholas and Dr. Schott. I can't remember, it's Tucker, I think his last name. The guy is sort of a long-time shooting guru who's worked with different NHL players. And before practices, we've seen Slafkovsky on the ice working. So, as I said earlier, Marty St. Louis, one of the things I like about Slafkovsky, he's a sponge, and he wants to learn, and he wants to put in the work, and he wants to get better, and he wants to be a star player in the NHL. He wants to be, he wants to be a superstar. And whether he gets there or not, we'll see. But again, for a 19-year-old kid playing in the NHL, what he's been doing the last 10 games, 20 games has been really, really impressive and surprising. Be honest, from what he was doing early at the start of the season.
It's funny because like Suzuki, if he hits that point per game, because right now he's on pace for 79 points.
Mm-hmm.
If he hits that point per game, he will surely reach 30 goals. Almost.
Oh,
surely.
Yeah.
Cole Caulfield, he's on pace for 29 also.
Mm-hmm.
He could also have 30. Yeah. The reason why that's significant is because the last time the Montreal Canadiens had, I'm looking at it right now. I just want to see if I can get it right, to get the year right. Yeah, the last time the Montreal Canadiens had 2 30-goal scorers in the same season was Alex Galchenyuk and Max Pacioretty in 2015-2016. Wow. That's a significant thing.
Yeah,
that's very. And you know what? It's funny because I thought before I saw that, and I found it on a whim. Mm-hmm. Before, off the top of my head, I was going to say the last time that happened was Max Pacioretty and Eric Cole. That's how long ago I thought it was.
I know. I mean, so offense has
that's
been,
that's a very significant
problem, especially from the forwards for this team for so long.
Mm-hmm.
The last 40 goal scorer was Vinny Danfus.
There you go. So. Pacioretty got to 40 one year, but it didn't. If you combine playoffs, if you combine both, but
if Pacioretty
that's not the way the history books go down.
No, but if Pacioretty had Nick Suzuki as a center, he would have scored 40 goals. And again, not knocking David Darnay because he did the best he could in that position, and he was a good little hockey player, and but he was not a legitimate number 1 NHL center.
No. So just a lot of positives coming for the Canadians, and it's funny because I just remember doing an exercise like this. It was after the Canadians, it was this off season, they signed Josh Anderson, and it was like, wow, Brendan Gallagher could score 30 goals. Max Pacioretty could score 30 goals. This guy could score 30 goals. That guy could score. And it's like, not everyone can score 30 goals.
Yeah.
That's not how it works.
Yeah.
So
not
to have
every
2
season.
of those go.
Not every
exactly.
season. Again, that's why I think Max Pacioretty was so underrated. He had 30 goals. I can't remember how many years in a row. It was like 5 years in a row or something on a team that wasn't very good without a real number 1 center.
Mm-hmm. And he, I mean, listen, people could say what they want about his playoff performances. I would take Pacioretty on my team, back in his prime any day.
And when you only have one guy on a team that can score in a playoff series, it's pretty easy to. If you only have to shut down one guy,
why don't you start pointing the fingers? Hey, why don't you pick up the pace?
Well, no, I mean, you can just, we just need to shut him down and we'll win. There's nobody else to score, so you just focus on shutting him down.
Exactly. So let's talk about listen, I tweeted it out earlier in the week. This is another thing I think we deserve flowers for because we've talked about it before it really blew up this week because that segment on TSN and on the Sick podcast where Craig Button said Trevor Zegras, the best place for him to be, where the best fit is Montreal. We've spoken about this.
Mm-hmm.
I forget because we haven't spoken about it at length, you and I. I forget which side of the argument you are on, but
I think he fits right into that 20. I think he's 23, Zegras. He's right in that age group where Kent Hughes is trying to build this team. He's trying to get guys. He's accumulating all these draft picks, but he's not going to use them all. Look at the guys he's got. But Kirby Dach, Alex Newhook, and Zegras fits right into that category. I mean, they would have, if they were able to get him, they would have 4 guys from the first 16 picks in that 2019 draft, the year that Cole Caulfield, there are 4 guys from that draft they would have in the top 16 would be with the Canadians. So he at the age, and also the friendship with Cole Caulfield, they've been buddy. They were teammates on that under U.S. development team. They were together here last summer. Zegras came here for the Grand Prix. So buddies, and they need forwards who can score. So it'll be interesting to see, because the Canadians, they have, with all the draft picks they have and all the prospects they have and the young defensemen they have, they could put together quite an attractive package, I would think, to Anaheim that would maybe allow them to get Zegras here.
And listen, I don't know what Anaheim is looking for. What I've read, it's that they have, they have like, we know this on forwards. Obviously, it's easy to say about forwards. They have very deep prospect pool at forwards. Defense. Again, I don't know any of these names that I was looking at, but they have that young Russian defenseman that's on their team right now. He made a return to the lineup against the Canadians. I'm going to butcher his last name if I try, so I'm not going to. And Olin Zellweger everyone knows him from the World Juniors last year. And they traded away Jamie Drysdale, which has got to mean, you got good defensive prospects. So there's no real holes anywhere, but they're a bad team. So they need something. They need something.
Their compete level the other night at the Bell Center was the worst I think I've ever seen at the Bell Center. That I can't remember a team coming in and just mailing it in like that until the end, when they started deciding all of a sudden they were going to fight.
Right.
But the other thing with Zegras that would, I think, make him attractive to Kent Hughes and Montreal management is what we were talking about before with Slafkovsky, how he's able to handle the spotlight here. I don't know Zegras, but from what I've read and seen, he seems like a kid who enjoys the spotlight and wouldn't mind playing Montreal with everything that comes with it. He obviously knows or has an idea what it's like from hanging around with Cole Caulfield at the Grand Prix and being here in the summertime. And I'm sure seeing the way fans react to Caulfield. And I think he's one of those guys who might enjoy that rather than playing in Anaheim, where he can probably go wherever he wants and nobody knows who he is. So that's another thing to factor into it. It's playing in Montreal is different than playing almost anywhere else in the NHL when it comes to the media pressure or spotlight, not being able to go anywhere without getting recognized, all that stuff. So Zegras, again, in that age group, seems like a guy who can handle the spotlight, can offensive forward, something the Canadians really need. And we've talked about the first line. Now you start thinking, okay, who's the second line now? If they were to get Zegras, how do you, now you're building a second line, right? It'd be really interesting if Kent Hughes could pull off that trade. I think the Canadiens fan base would be incredibly excited.
So it's funny you say that, just that last part. It's just, there's a segment of the fan base. I don't know how big it is, because you know how these things work. The people who are vocal about things, they're the ones, like the people who are negative, they're the vocal ones.
Yeah.
So it's just, I'm seeing so much of just like people who are so vehemently against the Canadians trying to acquire Trevor Zegras. And it's like, I can't for the life of me figure out why. Okay, he's got defensive shortcomings. That's not what you're paying him for.
And you're right about the people. I mean, I remember going back to my days as a sports editor, and there was a younger reporter who was getting upset because of negative emails or comments and bothering them. And I said, for every one negative thing you receive, there's 20 people out there who like what you wrote, but they just don't.
Yeah, they won't read it out.
They just read and go, that was good. No, I enjoyed that. But they don't go, but it's the other ones, the trolls, or the people who are, banging at their keyboards. You suck, and that's suck, and you're right.
Yeah.
So I remember that someone was saying, just if they bother, the comments bother you that much, don't read them. Just don't read them. And if you do read them, just remember that for every one negative comment you get, there's probably 20 people out there or more who liked what you wrote, and just, they're not, they read it, they go, that was good. That's the end of it,
And it's just, so for me, I look at a player like that, and it's just how about this? I'm not even going to ask the question of how often does a player like that become literally never does a player of that talent level become available.
Yeah.
Now, let's
draft. That's that you get those
there you go.
players in the draft. Yeah. It's
So,
really
and it's funny because the thing that I hear a lot is, oh, he's too small. He's too small. And it's like, is 6 feet tall the new small? Like, I remember when Canadians fans were like, oh, we have too many guys under 6 feet. We have too many guys under 6 feet. And now this guy is 6 feet. Like, would it make you feel better if like, listen, you know, they say some people will argue size matters. Some people will argue size doesn't matter. 2 inches, you know, like if he was 6'2", does that make you feel better? Like just because there's a 0 on the end, like, you know what I mean?
I just look at he's 6 foot 185, so he's not a big heavy guy. But I mean, the NHL has changed. I mean, size is still important, I think, especially on defense in the playoffs. But skill, you know, if you're, you know, you can't use that a great line when he first came in as GM. He said, "We're not going to have 9 guys who are 5'8". You know, it's not going to win with a team like that. But when you have a 6 foot, 185-pound guy who's incredibly talented, I'll take those guys. I'll take 6 of those guys. You know, or 9 of those guys.
Is it inconceivable to, you know, because this player was on the market again? I'm not going to compare their skill levels, even though I think it's pretty fair, especially the first few seasons. Is that like you look at a guy like Jack Eichel, who was on the market, 6'2", 203 now. Mm-hmm. But, you know, Zegras actually outscored him in his first 2 seasons in the NHL. I'm looking now. He was almost point per game his second year. But all this to say is, like, if the Canadians back when he was on the market were going fishing for Jack Eichel, like, is something you would say, oh, you know, I don't want him anywhere near my team. This guy can't play defense. Like, look what he did in the playoffs last year. Like, why are you talking about defense?
But you go back a few years, who or what would the Canadians have had to offer for a guy like Eichel? Now they have. I mean, as I've written many times, you know, Kent Hughes' 2 probably best qualities he has as a GM are patience and just asset management. Just picking up all these pieces, getting an extra pick with every trade, or getting a prospect thrown in, or getting something else thrown in. And, you know, I think it's 23 picks over the next 2 drafts. They're not two first rounders, you know, each year. Mm-hmm. Expect that the later pick in the first round each year is going to get traded. Trying to get the Trevor Zegras type player, or that 23, 22, 20. Hughes really likes the proven commodity more than, and by the proven commodity, I mean a 22, 23-year-old guy like Alex Newhook or Kirby Dach, that they know the talent they have. They know what they can do. Maybe not in the best, where the team they were with, it wasn't working out for one reason or another. You know, Kirby Dach had a lot of injuries in Chicago. Alex Newhook had a limited role in Colorado. You get those guys, you bring them to a fresh start, give them more responsibility, you bump them up in the lineup, and you hope they become the players that they were expected to become when they were drafted. So that's why, you know, I'm not a gambling guy, but I would bet that Kent Hughes is going to trade that second first round pick, probably both years, package them or whatever. And now they have things that they could package. They could put together, like I said, what I think would be a pretty appealing package for Zegras, whether it's some young prospects, whether they're forwards or defensemen, first round draft picks. They have 2 second round draft picks next year too. He's got a lot of assets that he can package together to get that type of player. Whereas a few years ago, the Canadians couldn't have even put together a package a team would even look at, I don't think, for a Trevor Zegras type player. Exactly.
The only thing I would say that the Canadians don't really have to give, you could correct me if I'm wrong, I'm talking as a centerpiece in a package, is if the main piece Anaheim wanted was an NHL ready prospect level forward. Yeah. Like someone who could step into the lineup like tomorrow. Because like obviously there's Joshua Roy, but that's not a centerpiece to a Trevor Zegras. No. You know, like forget about that. That would be the only thing I think that they don't have to give. Basically.
Yeah, but I mean they do have I'm not going to say they're going to trade David Reinbacher or Lane Hudson, but they also have those two guys.
Oh, they got defensemen coming out the
Yeah,
wazoo, like
exactly. I mean, they got
good ones.
like, would they be willing to trade one of those two guys in a deal to get Zegras? Maybe. They've got lots of options. Like I said, Kent Hughes can put together a few different type of packages depending on what it is that Anaheim's looking for.
And it just really goes back to like if it's really the majority of the fan base that like doesn't want him, I just don't understand what you want from this team, because the team is bereft of offensive talent.
Yeah.
Like they cannot, as obviously lately they could, but like they're still losing a ton of games.
One line team right now, right? The first line,
exactly.
As I think it was Arpin had a great line. He says right now the Canadians they put the first line on, hope they can score, and then the next three lines they just hope they survive until you can get the first line back on the ice again.
And it's funny because for a big part of the fan base, as long as it's a new thing, as long as Juraj Slafkovsky finds his way onto the score sheet, the result of the game doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's like we're back to like, okay, Slafkovsky, you score a goal, the rest of the Canadians lose the game.
You scored, Cole Caulfield scored. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and then the rest of the game doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So like if that's where we're back,
but in a way that's a good thing in year 2 of a rebuild.
No, I agree.
The fans understand that this team isn't built to win now. They don't have, they don't have the depth or the skill to win. But when you're 19-year-old and you're 22-year-olds and you're 23-year-olds and Jaden Struble, I mean, what a surprise this kid's been coming in and proving that he's an NHL defenseman. As I said before, there's a lot of reason for optimism moving forward with this team with the rebuild. But you're right. I mean, in a way, the fact fans are getting excited, even though they lose 7-2 or whatever it was, 7-4, and the first line played well. Fans are, and that's a good thing. The fans are okay. The rest of it, they're going to work on fixing. But the number one line now, we have a number one line. That's something, and that is something fans should celebrate in year 2 of a rebuild.
But so here's the flip side of it. Like, this is why Canadians fans, among many reasons, like just down to the very basic, why you should want a player like Trevor Zegras is, we mentioned 2 guys. Like, if the Canadians lose 7-4, and here are your goal scorers: Jake Evans, with all due respect to these guys, Jake Evans, Yoel Armia, and Jonathan Kovacevic, because he's like the new Gretzky of like defenseman.
And he's a Knuckles. He's a Knuckles Island reincarnated now too, it seems.
Well, that's it. There you go. So like those 2 guys, and like I can't even name another player off the top of my okay, Brandon Gignac. Like if they lose 7-4, and those 4 players are your goal scorers, you are so livid with the performance that was put up. Only 2 players are exciting the Canadians. Of course, Nick Suzuki is going to excite people, but I think people get more excited about the production off of Slafkovsky and Caulfield. If it's only 3 guys you're excited about, that team's not going to go very far next year either.
No. Well,
you should want more players to be excited about.
A lot can change in the offseason. I mean, if they had Zegras or whatever other trades they make, a lot can change between now and next season. I mean, I don't expect the Canadians to make the playoffs next season either. In year 3 of I think they're at least another full season away. Year 4 of a rebuild, I think now you should be getting into the
starting to push.
And then year 5, get into the playoffs and be able to do some damage and win a series or 2. And Mark Bergevin used to say, once you get in the playoffs, anything can happen. But the way I said, for year 2, to have a first line in place, to have so many young defensemen in place, to have so many draft picks coming up, it's a pretty good job, I think, that Kent Hughes has done, and Jeff Gorton and Marty St. Louis since they took over.
100%. And it's really like, if you're a Canadians fan right now, you could really, I don't see how you could be happier if you're a well-grounded.
Well, if you're patient, and a lot of Habs fans aren't patient. You hear older Habs fans saying, it used to be the Stanley Cup or nothing.
Yeah,
there used to be 6 teams in the NHL. I think the Canadians won 14 of their 24 Stanley Cups, and it was a 6-team league. And then they won 7 of the other ones when there was, after expansion, they played the best of the expansion teams in the Stanley Cup final and kicked their butts. There was no salary cap. I mean, we were talking before about Lemaire, Lafleur, Shutt. You could never have that you could keep that line for a couple of years. The salary
until
cap,
someone's
and
up
then
for a
throw in
contract.
Serge Savard, Guy Lapointe, and Larry Robinson on the point, and Ken Dryden in goal. Like you got $8 million players right there. So it's it's a 32 team league. There's a salary cap. Just making the playoffs really is an accomplishment in today's NHL. So for fans, and some of the fans that are impatient or frustrated are the same fans that were yelling rebuild, tank.
Yeah, exactly.
They tanked, and now they're rebuilding, and that takes more than 2 years.
And it also just goes to like for that segment of the fan base, it's like had the Canadians gotten first overall last year, Connor Bedard, he is not a magic wand that would have fixed all the issues.
I know he's been hurt, but even with him in the lineup, they were terrible.
Yeah, exactly. But like that's not like put Connor Bedard on the Montreal Canadiens right now. They're not making the playoffs.
No.
Like there are so many deeper issues with the roster than just saying oh, why can't they make the playoffs? They had first overall and they suck every year now.
Look at the Rangers last night. The depth they have on offense.
Oh man,
what a team! I mean, they can throw 3 lines out there that can score, and that's a good team. That's the sign of a good team. As you say, Connor Bedard. As I said, when Chicago was in town with Connor Bedard, he's a great player, but Chicago's terrible with or without Connor Bedard. They're worse without him, but they're not very good with him.
Yeah, and just to touch on that Rangers team, listen, Canadians fans, Jeff Gorton's got his fingerprints all over that team. So
that was his rebuild. That was his. This is the rebuild that he started. And when he got fired, it was an impatient owner.
Yeah,
I mean,
and there was like issue. There was also like issues there, like some fighting behind the scenes.
Yeah, the owner is one of those owners that gets too involved. Instead of just letting his hockey people do their jobs and gets too emotional. But you're absolutely correct. That's the New York Rangers, the team that Jeff Gorton started the rebuild with, and that's one of the reasons he got the job here because they realized there was a similar situation the Canadians were in, and when Jeff Molson signed off on going full rebuild, and NHL head office and Gary Bettman also recommended Jeff Gorton. They thought he would be a good guy for the job, and the NHL wants their original 6 teams to do well, right? It's good for business. And Jeff Gorton was brought in here and with a long range plan. And, go back to the golf tournament last September when he wouldn't even say the word playoffs. And do you want the Canadians to make the playoffs in year 2 of a rebuild and lose in the first round and not get a top 5 or 6 pick in the draft? Probably not if you're looking at the big picture, looking down the road. And that's why they traded Sean Monahan and didn't wait until the trade deadline. Like, would they have a better chance of squeezing into the playoffs this year with Sean Monahan? Of course they would. But they got rid of him because they're not looking at that. They're not looking at maybe we squeeze into the playoffs and maybe win around. They're looking at and they've said it right from day one. We want a team that can compete every year, where getting in the playoffs is a given, and it's what are we going to do after? Like what the Boston Bruins are like. The Bruins are good every year. They lose guys. Patrice Bergeron leaves. It doesn't matter. They keep winning. That's the type of team that the Canadians are looking to build here.
Yeah, and you know what? It's just a matter of just staying patient because, you're starting to see things bloom a little bit if you're a Canadians fan. So just like it's rough. It's rough out there. Yeah. But hey, listen. At least, remember 2 years ago, you were flipping on a Canadians game, dreading the next 3 hours of your life.
Yeah, or if they went down 2-0. Yeah, you went down 2-0 in the first period. You switch the channel, see what's on Netflix, or you turn the TV off, or whatever. There's as I said, there's reason for hope, and they're fun to watch on most nights. They have some bad games, but they compete. They play hard under Marty St. Louis, and it's, as I said, rebuilds. As I said, I think the 5-year plan is a good benchmark for how long it takes for a rebuild to kick in. And even there's no guarantee it's going to work after year 5 either. Lots of things can happen. Look at what's gone on in Buffalo and places like that where seem to be rebuilding forever and they just can't get over that hump.
Buffalo, Ottawa. Yeah. It's just like a lot of play. Hey, listen, at least Detroit is starting to turn a corner, which is always nice to see. It's like it felt weird seeing Detroit like be bad for so long. Cause like
Yeah.
I grew up, I was born right smack, like watching hockey smack in the middle of them making the playoffs like every single year, like clockwork. They just make it every year.
There was also a period when there was a period when they were
50
known
wins every year, 50 wins making it into the playoffs every single year.
there was another period when they were known as the Dead Things. And they were brutal for a long time also.
Well, those days were back for a very long time.
Yeah.
After Datsuk and Zetterberg left, those days were back in full force.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Well, sort of the end run of and we're going to see this in Tampa eventually, right? Their star players are all getting up there. At some point, they're going to go the other way. The same thing happened in Chicago, right? They won cups with Taves and those guys and Kane, and it went down. You know, at some point with the Canadians, Suzuki and Caulfield and Slafkovsky are going to get older, and you know that's the way sports go. But they're built. That's why with this rebuild, that's why it's so important that 22, 23, 24-year-old age bracket that Kent Hughes is really focusing on getting as many guys as he can in that age group, and then surround them with veterans like Mike Matheson and guys like that to help them along as they go to rebuild. And Jake Allen, you know, he's been a real whatever happens with Jake Allen one way or the other, he's struggling this year. His fingerprints will be all over this rebuild because he's a really respected guy in the locker room. He has a lot to do with how Samuel Montembeault has progressed. Jake Allen's a great teammate. He's a really good guy, and he's a great teammate. And he's known all along. Like he's told me, I'm not going to be here when this rebuild gets to where it was, but I'm going to follow it because I feel like I was part of getting this started here. And he's very true. And David Savard's another guy like that. Sean Monahan's another guy like that. They brought in a lot of good veterans who are good people to help with this rebuild as it moves forward. And their fingerprints are going to be on this rebuild just as much as Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton and Marty St. Louis if or when it gets to the point where they are in the playoffs every year and they're competitive.
And, you know, we're talking about rebuilds. It's like, I don't know if the Canadians are done or not, but hey, we're not just like they've already traded their big piece, but you never know. We're exactly 3 weeks away from the trade deadline.
Yeah.
Maybe Kent Hughes gets a 24th pick in the next two drafts, a 25th maybe. So you know, because you mentioned David Savard, there's still a lot to be done for the Canadians, but at least from an asset management perspective, I don't think Canadians have to worry that like you have like this golden nugget that a lot of teams want, that it's going to be, that situation will be bungled because like,
I'm not sure what David Savard is going to be worth at the trade deadline. I don't know if he's a first round pick guy, but you know, Ben Sherratt got them a first round pick.
You never know.
David Savard, Tampa Bay went and got him, and they won the Stanley Cup with him, right? And he was played a, you know, not gonna say a key role, but he played. You know, he was a solid defender. David Savard's a good guy to have in the playoffs. Kill penalties, block shots, physical style. Like what might he get offered for him? You know, that's do they add another first round pick or second round pick if they're willing to give up on David Savard? I mean, I think there's part of the Canadiens management team that would like to keep David Savard around for another year as the father figure for this young defense, but it's going to depend on what Kent Hughes gets offered. And at this point, I'm not. You know, teams get desperate right at the trade deadline.
That's it.
July 1st and the trade deadline are when some of the worst moves in the NHL are made because GMs are desperate and they panic and they give up more than maybe they. I mean, Ben Sherratt's a perfect example. You know, they gave up a first round pick and played the rest of that season in Florida, and he was gone. Went to Detroit.
And just another, I was just thinking, like another thing, talk about first round picks. The other first round pick the Canadians have next year are the Calgary Flames, who, listen, there's a million different conditions on this pick. I don't really understand it. All I know is that they have their first round pick next year.
Yeah.
And
they got 2 first round picks for Sean Monahan, which is talk about asset management. You get 2 first round picks for one guy. That's
also
not bad.
Just about that first round pick from Calgary. First of all, they got that first round pick like to acquire Sean Monahan, which is just the best.
Please take him and his salary, and we'll also give you a first round pick.
Yeah. Now flip on TSN for about I don't know, the first 10 minutes of a Sports Center segment, and when they're not still talking about Ridley Gregg shooting a puck into an empty net, when they're not talking about that, they're talking Trade Center. They got their trade bait board. The first 3 players on that trade bait board are members of the Calgary Flames organization. That Calgary pick can very well be significantly higher than the Canadians pick next year. So you're in good. Canadians. You're in good shape.
Patience and asset management. And as I've said several times, being on with you, you can disagree with the moves that Kent Hughes makes, but when he explains them, you can understand the reasoning behind them. Mm-hmm. And as I said earlier, we started off the show, I was saying earlier in the season, I thought Juraj Slafkovsky shouldn't be in the NHL. I thought they should send him to Laval. He wasn't ready to play. They thought differently. They were patient. They stuck with it, and they were right. And I was wrong. He's blossoming now after going through the growing pains and looking. I mean, he looked. For anybody who's an honest Canadiens fan, Juraj Slafkovsky looked like he did not belong in the NHL earlier this season. He looked lost out there, and almost at a point where you almost felt bad for him. Like, this isn't fair to let the kid keep, trying to keep his head above water just to survive. And say, it might have been Craig Button who said, you can't play in a league where you're just trying to survive. If you're just hanging on and trying just to survive, you need to go down. So when you come back up, you're not drown. You're not you're not just trying to survive. You're actually playing. And earlier this season, Slafkovsky looked like he was just trying to survive, and now he's playing, and he's playing really well.
And hey, here's to that continuing, because it's awesome to see. Like, he has one of the most. Like everyone said, Cole Caulfield has an infectious personality, infectious smile. Like, I love seeing Juraj Slafkovsky smile, because he's just like this giant on the ice, and he has just a big mouth. So when he smiles, it's like he could probably scream so loud.
He's a big guy. He's got a big personality. As I said, I mean, I really like the kid. He's fun to be around. He's funny. He's really good with the media, with his time, and he's thoughtful in his answers, and he's funny, and he's able to poke fun at himself too. All the reasons I mentioned before that make him able to survive in this very bright spotlight in Montreal. He enjoys it, and he looks like he's going to thrive in it.
Mm-hmm. And I think he will. I think he will too. And it's only better, like we said, for really everyone in the Canadiens organization, but really Cole Caulfield and Nick Suzuki.
Yeah, well, 29 games or whatever it is left, it's something to look forward to, right?
Yep.
If you're a Canadiens fan, whether they win or lose, just watching this first line grow together, and hopefully Slafkovsky gain more confidence as the season goes on. That's worth paying attention to, whether they win or lose or whatever happens the rest of the way. So I think that's a reason to keep Habs fans interested and watching games and looking forward to what the future is going to bring for this team.
And that was a problem last year, just as we wrap up. That was a problem last year, because after the trade deadline, it was like, I don't really care. I don't care anymore. What are we going to talk about now? Now you could see, there's tons of things to talk about. There's tons of things to look forward to, and there's tons of things to watch.
The battle on the blue line with all these young guys, who's going to be a healthy scratch? I mean, when Jordan Harris is back healthy, who sits out? Is it Xhekaj? Is it Kovacevic? Is it Harris? That's another thing to watch. Just Jaden Struble. He had that one bad game against St. Louis, and he bounced right back. So that's to me, those are the two things. That number one line, the power play, since Alex Newhook came back and was put in that bumper spot, boy, this power play has looked really good, really good. So that's another thing. So those are things that going forward, Habs fans can look forward to watching and paying attention to, and hoping they can improve. And maybe hopefully at the trade deadline, Kent Hughes solves a three-headed monster goalie situation, and you see Sam Mountain will play more down the stretch, and also Caden Primo. So yeah, I think there's a lot of things for Habs fans to be excited about for the rest of this season and moving forward into year 3 of the rebuild next season.
And it continues tomorrow night when the Canadiens play the Washington Capitals at home, where the Canadiens still very bad for some reason. Doesn't make much sense. I mean, they're not a good team, but it's just weird.
Look,
Anyways,
Max Pacioretty will be back.
Oh, there you go. Max Pacioretty coming back to town. That's actually going to be a cool thing. I hope he gets a lot of cheers. He should, right?
I agree.
Come on. I mean, Jonathan Drouin got cheers. He's going to get cheers. There you go. Stu, thank you very much for joining me, and we'll talk to you next week.
Okay, enjoy your weekend.
That was Stu Cowan. I'm Matt Ohayon. We'll catch you next time.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. LaVie.tv, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.